Can we take our seats so we can make a start, please? Okay. Can I do a quick quality check that we've got 140 people in the room? Please raise your delegate cards. Please, please. Please, everyone sit down so I can have a proper look, please. Thank you. So can I just see your delegate cards high and nice in the air that we're all here. Brilliant, thank you. I see enough. Thank you very much, conference. Good, hope access break was refreshing. I'm gonna go into UD zone now. My name's CY and I'm on NEC currently. What else can I tell you about myself? Not a lot, but, sorry, what did you say? Oh, okay, all right. Well, I hope at the end of this, you will see why I'm sat here. Everyone always takes a mick at my name. Now you see why, whatever, whatever. So I hope you see why at the end of this. I'm not very good with jokes, so I'm going to pass it over to DPC now.
Yeah, just pass it over to DPC.
Hello, conference. Welcome back from the access break for the last part of conference. Well, fine, I'm not upset. Cool. If I could ask those that, thank you. If I could ask those still entering the conference venue to please find their seat as quick as possible. Conference, we have received a procedural motion, which is 380A, meeting has no confidence in the chair. I'll pass back to the back desk.
Can you raise your delegate cards so I can see 100 delegates to hear this motion? Can you, 100 delegates, please raise your cards if you want to hear this procedural motion. I do not see 100 delegates, so it falls.
Thank you, conference. I haven't even got a word in yet, but thank you, guys. All right, conference, so we're going to move on with the UD motions. Motion 501 is the first one, union as unions, and this motion has been submitted by the UD Zone Committee. So can I get someone to speak in favor of this motion? Please, can I see a delegate card? Oh, I see that delegate over there. Please state your name and constituent member for the record, and you've got 2 minutes to speak for the motion. Thanks.
For the very last time, Ali Milani, your Vice President, Union Development. Conference, I think it's not a particularly radical statement to say that our student movement exists alongside a strong tradition of trade union movements across the UK. The work that we have done has always been integral to the work of the trade union movement. We have won together, we have fought together, and we have been under attack together. What this motion does is enshrine that we will continue that proud history and work closer with our trade union branches on our local campuses for NUS to support students' unions and developing those links and working on getting more students involved and members of trade union movements. Only 40, 50 years ago, membership of trade unions was 1 in 3 people who were working. That number has dramatically fallen, specifically within the young people and the student movement as a whole. So I think this motion is really, really integral because the attacks on the student movements, the attacks on our freedoms to campaign, to organize and fight has been simultaneously done to our trade union colleagues, and so we must stand together and fight together. And I just want to mention one thing before I leave. I heard in an earlier speech talks around our work with trade union movements being illegal, talks about the Charities Commission. I can absolutely say, A, that is not true. These motions are not illegal. NUS UK is not a charity, so I could care less what the Charities Commission thinks. And if the government's going to come down with us on a ton of bricks, I say bring it on.
Thank you, Delegate. Right. So the speech against this motion is free. So is there anyone looking to speak against the motion? Anyone? Just trying to have a proper look. No. In that case, I will move to take a vote on this motion. Right? Okay. So can I see all the delegates in favor of this motion? Raise your cards nice and high. Not your hand, the card. All right. And thank you, guys. And those against the motion, put your delegate cards up. Okay, I see a few. Any abstentions? Okay, this motion clearly passes. Thank you, conference. Our next motion is motion 502, the Elections Commission.
Tell her to stop.
Right, DPC wants to say something, so I'm going to pass over to DPC.
Cool, thank you. Hello, conference. We have received a procedure motion, 380F. The question as specified be now put, and that is for motion 507. Back to the back desk.
Can I see 100 delegates who want to hear the case for this, please? I'm just going to ask again, please, can I see 100 delegates? So if you're still making up your mind, please put your cards up so I can see. Right, okay. I think I see 100 delegates, so we will hear it. Motion 502 is property of Ali, VPUD, but it's been waived. Sorry. I apologize, conference, 1 sec. It's just between us and DPC on this stage is a mile away, so getting info back is quite difficult. So just bear with me while I confirm, and then I'll tell you what's happening. Honestly, I'm not even trying to waste time and keep you guys here longer than we should. In my opinion, last day of conference should be a party. Who agrees with me? Yeah, right? No, if you agree, can I see delegate cards if you think last day of conference we should have a party, like conference should close with a party? If that was a motion, it would have passed, honestly. Yeah. Right. So I've just got words from DPC who have extra pair of eyes from me. I thought I saw, my glasses are not really, I did not see 100 delegates. So that procedural motion is not going to stand, and we're going to move on. We really don't have a lot of time, and so we're going to move on to 502. As a former president, UD is like my favorite, Ali, I love you. So UD is like my favorite motion. So I want us to get through all the motions, please. So we're going to move on to motion 502. It's submitted by UD's own committee. And can I get someone who's willing to speak in favor of this motion? I see a delegate over there. You've got 2 minutes. Please state your name and constituent member for the record.
Evie Aspinall, Cambridge SU, first-time delegate, and you guessed it, first-time speaker. Over the last few days' conference, I'm proud to say that we have elected an all-women's officer team. We voted to save our liberation campaigns, and we've said that we stand against Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. But conference, this is just the start. Across our campuses, racism remains rife. Disabled students are disadvantaged by an inaccessible education system, and yes, women still face structural oppression. All of this becomes clear during elections. Black and Muslim students are disproportionately disqualified and unfairly targeted during elections by the press, by the university, and by elections committees themselves. Men dominate SU president roles, and election campaigning remains incredibly inaccessible. And as long as this remains the case, our movement will fail to reflect the ideas and visions of our diverse student body. We, as a movement, have a responsibility to our students to not simply be representative, but to fight hard for minority students and to elevate their voices. Furthermore, we must stand against the backlash which emerges as women finally start to take on positions of leadership. Conference, we must stand against the creation of men's officers into SUs. Men's mental health and suicide rates must be tackled, but we must redirect the calls for support to the welfare and disability campaigns. There is a mental health crisis, but crucially, men are not systematically oppressed for being men. The Liberation campaigns, Welfare Zone, and sections have done some incredible work and will no doubt continue to challenge racism, prevent student suicides, and support international students, and the UD Zone must join them. Our society relies on the labour of marginalised students, and it is time we stand with those students. Our elections must be accessible, and we must do more. So I urge you, Conference, vote for this motion.
That's time, Delegate. Thank you very much. I'm going to move over to DPC for parts. There's parts to this motion. Over to you, DPC.
Hello, Conference. I'm assuming and pretty much hoping you know what parts are for now, so I'm going to get straight into it. And this is for the removal of Conference Resolves 3. Conference Resolve 3 reads as follows. That we also take a stance against men's officers / representatives, and that we redirect these calls for support to the relevant liberation campaigns.
Is DPC done? Right, okay, so can I see 100 delegates for this part to be discussed, please? Please raise your cards nice and high, just to avoid any issues. Can I see 100, please? Because at the moment I don't. All right, I don't. Apologies. So right. So the amendments. No, against. Speech against. Now the speech against is free. So.
Amendments. Sorry. Amendments. Yeah, it is amendments.
Right. There is an amendment to this motion, apparently, and it is submitted, 502A, submitted by ARU Students Union. So can I see a delegate wishing to speak? Okay. Yeah. All right, then please state your name and constituent member for the record, and you've got 90 seconds.
Hi, Conference. Laura Dowds, Anglo-Ruskin Students Union. This amendment's quite simple, really. There's nothing currently in the motion about disabled students, and we desperately need to add them into the policy. If we as student unions genuinely believe in free and fair elections, then they should be accessible to as many of our members as possible, not just those who aren't disabled. The current best practice and standards within SUs is a week-long voting period, and this just isn't accessible to lots of disabled students. And we really need to investigate the effect of shorter voting periods on turnout in election, but more importantly, the effect on disabled students. We shouldn't be promoting an inaccessible format as best practice, and we should be challenging SUs to do better. Accessibility isn't an option, it's a right. And as such, we have a duty to make all of our processes accessible. So, Conference, I'm urging you to vote for this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Can I ask you to please go to the minutes desk? Thank you very much. Now, can I get someone who's looking to speak against? It's free, so if you're speaking against this amendment, can I see a delegate with a delegate card? No. So we're going to move on to the vote to accept this amendment or not. So if you are in favor of accepting this amendment, can I see your delegate cards nice and high, please? Against? If you're against it? Abstentions? That amendment passes. Thank you. There is also a second amendment, Amendment 502B, and it is submitted by University of Stirling Students Union. Can I see a delegate looking to speak in favor? I see that delegate over there. Please make your way to the podium. You've got 90 seconds. Please state your name and constituent member for the record.
Stuart McCluckey, Stirling Students Union. Conference, we've spoken a lot about reform over the past couple of days. I believe that we can reach a middle ground between bureaucratic work that NUS and the unions need to do and the roles that we also need to do within our unions. As one of the speakers said yesterday, it is important that we don't just talk about the commercial reforms, we also talk about democratic reforms. which is why I wish to propose a motion which allows unions to actually inform delegates as to how they can engage students further. So whether that be using stalls or going up to clubs and societies to give speeches, these should be things that our unions and the NUS should be not only encouraging our delegates to do, but actually in a way enforcing them to do. Because ultimately, by accepting these reforms within my motion, it will allow delegates to actually make more grounded policy too. So essentially, if you want to see an NUS that is more representative and more encouraging of diverse opinions and diverse people to be engaged with the NUS, please consider voting for my motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is there a delegate looking to speak against this amendment? It's free, so that's anyone. I see the delegate over there at the back. Please make your way to the stage as quickly as you can. Oh, getting the steps in. You don't have to run though, but be careful. All right then, please state your name and constituent member for the record.
Thank you. I'm Dora from UCL. I want to speak against this amendment because I think part of it is founded on like a kind of misconception. We were given guidelines on like how to vote, just not really binding guidelines, but kind of guidelines on how to vote, not in accordance with our own ideas, but with Students' Union policy. But that Students' Union policy wasn't set by students in any meaningful way. It was set by like 15 people in a room who have no accountability, no communication, no transparency with the wider student body. So I think the effect that this amendment would have is that it would just basically remove the democratic accountability of delegates. It would just make them kind of pawns and tools of Students' Union bureaucracy, which is not something that we want, because I mean, what's the point of having a conference? The point is for us to come here and to be able to deliberate and vote on what we actually believe in, not to just be told what to do. If I'm to just be told how to vote, I might as well not come here. I don't think that this was the intention of the proposer, but I think that's kind of one of the circumstances that this will entail, so I urge you all to vote against. Thank you.
Thank you, delegates. So now we are going to move to a vote on that amendment. So can I see all the delegates in favor of that amendment with the delegate cards nice and high? All those against? Any abstentions? Wow, okay. Can I ask to do it again, please? All those in favor of this motion, can I see your delegate cards? Thank you. All those against this amendment? Okay. And then abstentions? Okay. Right, this motion falls. This amendment falls, apologies. Now, can I get someone who's willing to speak against the motion? The main motion, as amended. I see a delegate at the far back. Please make your way. Yeah, you're looking back. Make your way to the stage. Delegate, you've got 90 seconds, and please state your name and constituent member for the record.
Hi, my name is Abigail Grant. I'm from the Union of Kingston Students. I would support this resolution, motion apart from the fact of Resolve 3, because it's not just about male mental health and male suicide rates. It's also about the fact that men are more likely to be homeless, men are more likely to end up in prison, more likely to not get childcare in a divorce settlement or a custody settlement. Men's issues are real. Men are also negatively affected by the patriarchy. So please, don't put in place against male representatives. If a male sexual assault victim has to speak to a female rape crisis interventor, they're not going to feel comfortable. There are many men's issues that our men still face today. So please vote against this resolution, or thanks.
Thank you. Can I just quickly remind delegates not to shout down the mic? That's come back as feedback. It's all right. I'm sure you didn't mean to do it. All right, then. Can we move on to the summation, please? And it's the property of ARU. Can I get someone looking to do the summation speech? You can waive it or whatever, but let me know it's... Oh, all right, I see that delegate who's looking to speak. One sec. Delegate, you know the drill. Say your name and constituent member. You've got 2 minutes. Yeah.
Sarah Lasoye, NUS National Women's Officer. The purpose of a men's officer is there is none. A men's officer role, representatively, the position of a liberation officer is not to simply represent. We don't just walk into a room and say, I'm a woman, so I deserve to be here. The issues that are being talked about, such as rape, sexual assault, mental health, are important issues. What we're talking about structurally is that men are not structurally oppressed. These issues disproportionately affect women, and hence women's liberation position was created to see the undoing and dismantling of those issues. The Disabled Students Officer has worked tirelessly on tackling mental health and suicide rates, as we've seen from the Welfare Report and the Disabled Students Campaigns Report. The idea that we should be actively encouraging representation of men for the purpose of delivering things that are already being delivered by women's and disabled students officers is quite frankly completely disappointing and really frustrating. So if you'd like to talk to me more about what the purpose of this position is, why it's completely obsolete, come up to me afterwards.
Time, delegate.
But please
Thank you very
vote for this
much.
amendment because that is a complete...
Thank you, delegate. All right, so we're going to move on quickly to the vote for this motion as amended. So can I see all those in favor of accepting this motion as amended? Raise your delegate cards nice and high, please. Thank you. And those against this motion as amended? All right, and then any abstentions? This motion passes as amended. I'm going to pass over to DPC now. DPC?
Hello, conference. So we've had a procedure motion 380H that the questions as specified be remitted to another body or person, that body being the NEC, and that will be to remit the rest of the Union Development Zone motions to the NEC. Thank you.
Can I see 100 delegates looking to hear this procedural motion? I see 100 delegates. So, yeah, it's property of NEC, so can I get some speak? Right, I see. Oh, property of NEC. Okay. Okay.
Hi conference, Nabila Maulana, NEC. Essentially what this is for is a lot of you have spent a lot of time researching and writing up these motions. When the guillotine falls, they won't be heard, which is quite sad. So this motion is just to send it to NEC, so your motions do get heard, they do get voted on, and hopefully they do become conference policy. So please vote for this. Well, NUS policy, so please vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you. So speech against is property of DPC, so can I see a DPC member? See that one?
Hi, conference. This is just to say that conference time is now over, and if not debated, then that's really unfortunate.
Thank you. All right, so we are going to vote for that procedural motion. Can I see delegates who are in favor of passing it over to NEC? Right, and those against? And any abstentions? Right, so it passes and it moves over to NEC. Yay. All right, I'm going to invite our friendly CRO Jules for elections now. So he's making his way up, and it'll be great if we all settle down as we're going into important bits for elections. Okay.
Hi again, conference. Can I firstly ask all the candidates for Block of 15, Student Director and DPC elections to come to the front? We'd like you to sit in alphabetical order based on your surname for your respective elections. That way it makes it quicker and easier for you to come up on stage, make your speech, and then get off stage. Just a reminder, candidates for the Block of 15 and Student Director will have up to 90 seconds to speak. Candidates for DPC will have up to 1 minute to speak. Also, a reminder for everyone, no whooping, no hollering. For candidates, no swearing and no need to shout. Can I have a bit of quiet, please? Excuse me, can I have a bit of quiet, please? Thank you. No need to shout. There is a microphone, your voice will be amplified. Also, don't know about you, but I'm really excited because this is the first time we're doing online voting for NUS National Conference elections, so I'm quite happy about that. Bringing in a digital age to NUS democracy, it's cool. So all of you will receive an email because we will shortly be making the elections live. You'll be able to vote through the conference hub. What you will need to check is your own email inbox. The email link may either go into your inbox or it may go into your junk spam folder. So you will need to check that. You have up to midday on April the 17th to be able to cast your vote. So over the next 24 hours, it will go live. You'll get an email with the link. You will need to then activate that link and be able to vote. If you encounter any difficulties, please email democracy@nus.org.uk. That is democracy@nus.org.uk. So that, can candidates lower your noise a bit? Just please take your seats as directed, but slightly lower your noise. So just to reiterate, if you have any concerns or you feel you haven't got your email with the link to be able to vote, you need to email democracy@nus.org and we'll try to service and respond to your queries as soon as possible. It's likely that'll be from Monday rather than tomorrow because staff need a bit of a break after servicing and supporting the last few days in conference. But yeah, check your email, click on the link, and you'll be able to vote. Between me and my deputies, we'll be chairing the next 3 elections, so good luck to all the candidates, and enjoy.
Hello, conference. Oh, hello. Firstly, thank you to Jules for giving me some time to apply my lipstick. In case you're wondering, it's Fenty, and yeah, Rihanna has invented makeup, which was nice of her. So cool. We're going to have, obviously, some elections now. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to speak. And you should be sitting in the order, candidate, that your name appears on the ballot paper. I'm going to ask you to do, obviously, we'll be in for elections for quite a while, even though afterwards you'll obviously be voting online. Ooh, that's how excited I am about online voting there. And so I'd ask everyone to kind of remain very respectful and sort of calm mind candidates not to shout into the mic, no whooping. And sort of before we start, being from Wales, obviously it was Welsh Varsity yesterday, so I'd obviously like to give my congratulations to the moral victors, Swansea University. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, to that delegate who shouted how great Swansea is. You're right, it's Britain's best city. You can't no-con someone from the elections committee, lads, so you're going to have to suck it up and like it. So, if we could have the candidates' names on the screen. That happening? Okay, so okay, so what are these? Okay, so if we're ready to begin, so eyes forward, like full hearts. Let's have an election. Way. So welcome our. Can you behave, Lord? Can welcome our first candidate, Candidate Atik to the stage, please. Thank you. Candidate, you'll have 90 seconds.
Okay. I'm Natik, President, Aston Students' Union. Over the last 2 days, we have made history. We've elected our first all-woman president, VP team, and saved our union from its impending financial crisis. But it should have never gotten to that stage. For as long as I can remember, the higher-ups in NUS have been more concerned with atting each other on Twitter rather than focusing on the real concerns of our students. NEC has failed in fighting vital disaffiliation campaigns that keep our movement together. And while all of this has been going on, most of us have been getting on with the job we have been elected to do, which is winning for students. I launched my union's first ever Islamophobia campaign. I ensured a bursary for all first-year students on campus. I won funding for mental health services. And I still found time to dye my hair. Conference. If you want someone on NEC that will hold the officers to account and will connect you with your NEC all year, vote for me. If you want an NEC that will show up on campuses that doubt the very membership of NUS, vote for me. If you want an NEC that is extraordinary in its vision for a united student movement, vote for me. Conference, let's be clear. This is no ordinary conference, and you are electing for no ordinary NEC. So for an extraordinary NEC, vote Amna Atik, number 1 for Blocker 15. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate. I've also been asked to wish Scarlett from Derby a happy 30th birthday. Happy birthday. It's all downhill from here, let me assure you. So our next candidate to speak will be Awel Osob.
All my life, I've had decisions made for me, whether it's Brexit or education funding. Millions of us young people are having our future shaped without a voice. But there's also something very special happening. Students from Florida are marching for life. Young people in South Africa are rising up against hate. And in London, in my FE union, we set up the Further Education Students Alliance with a manifesto on everything from changing our curriculum to booting Prevent out of our classrooms and out of our colleges because they should never have been there in the first place. We got together as a group of young people active in our communities and colleges, determined to make a change. We have marched against racism. We have cried for the right to shape our own futures, the right to vote to 16. We have stood with our communities as councils shut down youth centres time and time again. And we have walked out of our classrooms demanding a response to the global climate catastrophe. Conference, all across the world, we are seeing young people snatching back their right to shape the world to come, snatching back our futures. And that starts here, on this stage, with a 5-foot black Muslim woman who is everything Trump warned you about. Vote also for Blocker 15.
So apologies, myself and Audrey were using a different list, so we realised we've been jumping about for a bit of a reason, so polls to candidates and polls for any confusion. So our next candidate, Abdullah Okad. Abdullah.
Abdullah Okad, Shafir Hallam Students' Union. Conference, here's something we all know. I'm a young black man, a Muslim black man. Here's something you might not know. When I ran to be president at my students' union, I was dragged. Because when I was passionate, I was called aggressive. When I was political, I was called extremist. When I did my job, I was told I was interfering. And when my mental health took a dip, I spoke up. But when I saw advice, I was told to man up. Yet despite this conference, at Shefford Hallam, I started the first campus-wide mental health campaign, the first year-long Black History campaign, the first student and staff solidarity network. I have been lucky enough to have lots of firsts, but that's not what I want to tell you about. I want to be the last Black student almost disqualified, the last Black student constantly marginalized, the last Black student who counts down every day until he leaves his union. We know we could do better. We can come back stronger. We can be the fighting union we hear about. We will be the support networks we never had. For an NEC that cares, for Abdullah Okud, #1 for Block. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate. Can I just remind again, in the, I'm going to say audience, that, yeah, it works. Whooping it's not just us like really disliking it, as Rachel really eloquently said earlier. It has a massive impact on people with hearing aids. So if you think a whoop's coming out and you're not about to like address or bring up the classic song that begins, you know, whoop whoop, it's the sound of the place, please, please don't. And it's also upsetting Dave, our favourite kind of elections dog. So if you hate doggos, what's going on? Let's talk about it later. So up next, Charlie Hind. Charlie.
Charlie Hind, Leeds Beckett Students' Union. Conference, when I was at York College, my students' union got shut down. NUS wasn't there. I dropped out in my first year at Bradford University, and NUS wasn't there. When I became education officer at Leeds Beckett, I was talking about post-92 institutions, but NUS did not listen. And you know what, conference? I'm bored of the Russell Group institutions dominating the landscape of our student movement. Because at Leeds Beckett, students don't have time to talk boardroom or picket line. Students aren't talking about diversity of tactics. They're talking about how they're going to get to their lectures on time after their 12-hour bar shifts. We're talking about fitting in that final essay around our jobs. We're talking about how many days we have left to get through until the next check enters our bank accounts. Course costs are too high, transport costs are too high, and rent, but better not talk about that. This conference is what students like us are worrying about. This is what students like us are doing things about. This is what I did 2 weeks ago when I took my landlord to court and we won all our rent back. NUS keeps banging on about what students want. Well, it's about time it starts delivering. I'm running for Block because we need a national leadership that doesn't forget about post-92s. That doesn't forget about students that don't have the time between living check to check, that doesn't forget about students on placements, internships, and apprenticeships. I'm running for Block of 15 so that NUS can be there for you like it never was for me. Choose Charlie, Block of 15. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr. That candidate was Charlie Hind. Our next candidate is Chuchu Nawaga.
Chuchu Nawaga, Roehampton Students' Union, NUS NEC. Conference. In the space of a couple of days, look at what we've been able to achieve. We've passed a substantial amount of policy, we've fought and won for our liberation campaigns, we've reformed our NUS, and we've stood united against rhetoric that's not welcomed on this stage, on our campuses, and in society. But NUS does not end here. Youth violence on the increase, the stigma of mental health killing our students silently, the attainment gap turning our students of colour into statistics, and international students being used as cash cows for institutions. But in all of this, lives have been lost, futures have been ruined, and students still do not know what NUS is. NUS needs to be relevant, working on issues facing students, transformative, thinking outside the box and engaging differently, and accountable now than ever before. And that's why I'm running for Block of 15, because there's no time for delay or for us to get derailed. NUS and NEC can do more and will do more. Where there's injustice and inequality, there is no future. So conference, re-elect me and vote once again for that guy with a name that reminds you of a train, for number 1 for NUS Block of 15, because I have the steam and the engine to get the job done.
Thank you, candidate. Our next candidate is Dominic Castleweir.
Dominic Sawyer, Lancaster University. I'm standing here in front of you today as a proud gay Jewish activist. Conference. We've seen the best in our movement this week. We've seen our movement embrace training for our officers on anti-Semitism and adopted the APP definition of Islamophobia. But where are we compared to last year? Broken promises? Up. Anti-Semitism and Islamophobia? Up. Mental health support? Down. And number of liberation officers? Well, they tried to bring that down, but we said no, conference. An attack on one minority is an attack on us all. That's why, conference, united, will oppose the anti-Semites, the Islamophobes, the transphobes, and the bigots, and one by one, we will kick them out. And it's time NUS got real and stopped letting our trans siblings down. Conference, we need an NEC team with fresh ideas, committed to liberation, and that's what I will deliver. So, if you're down for accountability, if you're down for better mental health support, and if you're down for putting liberation at the heart of everything we do, then get down with me, especially if you're a Dom top, and vote Dom number 1.
Conference, settle, please. Thank you. Thank you, Delegate. And Chair's Aide, can I just ask, can you not, my Chair's Aide is explaining something over the radio headset that I don't think anyone wants to hear, but let me tell you, we could probably start delivering sex education now based on what I've just heard there. Let us into schools, conference. Our next candidate is Gabe Milne.
Gabe Milne, Sheffield SU. Conference, this is a time of crisis, and I don't just mean financially, but in terms of our identity as a movement as well. Who are we? What do we want to be? And honestly, I've sat in this conference hall this week, and it's only produced more questions than answers, and we don't know, in the long run, what our future will look like. So here's how I believe it should be. I believe in a union that is democratic, transparent, and, most importantly, a movement that has liberation built into its core. I have sent racists running from my campus with their tails between their legs, and guess what? When the dual evils of Islamophobia and anti-Semitism come back, we will do it again. We must be bold and unapologetic in this fight, just as we must be bold and unapologetic in fighting all forms of discrimination, because liberation without solidarity is no liberation at all. That's the future I see for our union. Liberated, democratic, united. And if you share that vision, then it's got to be Gabe. So vote Gabe Milne, number 1 for Block of 15. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate. Just say we're getting a lot of tweets in asking for shout-outs, etc. Whilst it's not like Butlins in the 90s, we'll do. Just know we love you all, and we'll probably do that a little bit at the end. But back into elections, and our next candidate is Hamza Sheikh. Hamza. Oh, lovely round of applause now for all candidates coming up. Lovely. Go on. Yes.
Hamza Sheikh, University of Manchester, SU. Conference. In 1974, at a Rolls-Royce factory near Glasgow, workers refused to repair the engines of fighter jets raining bombs in Santiago under the fascist dictator Pinochet. They had a direct involvement in reducing the capabilities of the Chilean Air Force through the ultimate stage of love, solidarity. Solidarity in the belief that the people of Scotland were connected to the people of Chile. Solidarity in the belief that it was within their power to stop the crimes of conservative foreign policy. Solidarity, the word which is now everyone's favourite in the NUS. How can we talk about solidarity if none of us hold our universities' investment policies to account? How can any of us talk about solidarity if we do not suspect the use of our tuition fees to benefit the arms trade? How can any of us talk about issues abroad when we do not even talk about the source of these issues at home? I'm not going to repeat what everyone has said about mental health, liberation, free education, NUS debt crisis. I, too, am focused on these issues. But I will tell you is that weapons companies are our top employers for graduates in the UK, and this needs to stop now. Conference, this is not your typical election speech. This is a story of how our futures are connected to our past. Everything from the marketization of universities to the weaponization of British industry, everything is connected. Therefore, I would add here a personal touch. My name is Hamza Sheikh, and simply said, let's shake it up.
Thank you, candidate. That candidate was Hamza Sheikh. Now, may I welcome Ian Wong to the stage? Yes. Well, if you're the Ian Wong, it is you. I don't know, so though. You have 90 seconds, delegate. Thank you.
You'll start here thinking that I'm the candidate that ticks all the magical boxes this year. I'm intersectional, I'm international, I'm queer, BAME, and disabled. Yeah, I'm welcomed into this country and my campus with hate crime, but I'm a survivor. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to stop, and I'm going to work harder. And I know that on this conference floor, my story is not unique. Today, I stand before you as a full-time student, a part-time officer, and an NUS committee member. And I'm underrepresented, like all of you, by your SUs and by our national union. Yet I am fearless, I'm fighting, and I will be fierce. You see, our national union should represent, should liberate, and support us all. Students, and in the midst of the indifferences for the policies and debates in the past 3 days, it's our unity that makes us strong. And for far too long, our national union has been more interested in itself than it is in liberating all of us and all of our members that we represent. And together, we will fight against the tides of fascism, racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, misogyny, austerity in every corner of that island. Because I say right now, conference, enough is enough. Together, we will put liberation back at the center of our national union, because whether FE or HE, Black lives matter. Trans lives matter, and queer lives matter. Together, we will fight every deportation, because we're not here to pay. We're here to stay, and we're here to slay. Ian for Block 15. I'm Ian Wong. Wong's the new right. Vote for your Gaysian.
Dim whooping, as we definitely don't say in Wales, as ever. But thank you, candidate. That candidate was Ian Wong. Our next candidate is Jack Morwood.
Nice to be back, conference. Jack Morwood, Exeter Students Guild. Well, comrades, what a week. This conference really is excelling itself. You've bullied your own president off conference floor. People have been verbally attacked for having the audacity to be financially pragmatic, and you've watered down reforms that could, yet hopefully still will save the NUS. And you know, conferences, it's this rabble, this unaccountable rabble that's dominating this conference that's letting students down. Because it's not the people in this room that will decide NUS's future, it's the students looking into it. Unions need a reason to stay, and repeating that the NUS won council tax exemption nearly 3 decades ago just doesn't cut it anymore. Look around us. Students are choosing no NUS over a bad NUS in Portsmouth, in Plymouth, and they'll do the same in Exeter. And I promise you, conference, I promise you that will happen. I hope I'm the last Exeter delegate to ever speak on this stage, because when NUS bankruptcy is the preferred option of students, we are not trying hard enough. I say this movement has an immense capacity for good, so let's save it. Let's give students a reason to engage with this space. Let's say bye to this intolerant, intoxicating culture. Let's bring harmony where there is discord. This NUS is broken. Let's change it. Vote Jack Morwood, #1 for block of 15. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, conference, simmer down like a pot coming off the boil. Our next candidate is Jacob Pepper. Jacob. I can tell which one you are, yes.
It's a bit chilly up here. Jacob Pepper, UWLSU. Conference, we need to spice things up. NUS is on fire and is feeling hot, hot, hot. And they pursued a reckless financial strategy where they've taken SU's money and they've given it away, given it away, given it away now. Red Hot Chili Peppers, anyone? Okay. Well, conference, I know that white people are famous for bland food, but I can say with all certainty that NUS is better with pepper. So for support for widening participation, support for students with learning difficulties, and putting your SUs first, vote Jacob. To spice up your life, every boy, every girl, spice up your life. People of the world, spice up your life. Ah! Any questions? Thank you.
Sure. That candidate was Jacob Pepper. Don't know if you picked that up. Okay, our next candidate is Justine Kennedy. Justine, you've got 90 seconds.
All right, I'm excited to be up here again. Yesterday, conference voted through the biggest cuts to NUS democracy in a decade. The NUS has been left with less of a voice than any time in history. These attacks on our democracy have had vocal support from the so-called left leadership. The leaders who stood on this stage and told us they would make NUS into the fighting union for us just told us that our future, the future of our movement, lies with a right-wing vision for what our union is. A right-wing vision that strips NUS of its ability to fight, that takes away students' control and hands it to unelected officers. Those of us who do want a movement that fights need to get organized. We need to build a federation of fighting student unions to campaign across the country, to organize mass demonstrations, and do the work that a campaigning NUS should be doing. We need to keep the pressure on the newly elected FDOs so they don't forget the election promises that they were voted in on. We need a strategy to take on the relentless attacks on our education and living and working conditions. Our vision for NUS is a mass campaigning force alongside workers and the oppressed. Vote for me to see thousands of students on the street next year campaigning for a free education, against student debt, and against oppression. Vote for me if you want a radical political voice that articulates an alternative to Tory cuts and soft left lies and false promises. Vote for me if you want someone to defend liberation campaigns, free movement, migrants' rights. And I'll fight anti-Semitism in all its forms, rearing its ugly head on UK campuses now.
That is time, delegate, please. Okay, thank you, delegate. That delegate was Justine Kennedy. Our next candidate is Larissa Kennedy. Larissa, come on down, or I suppose up.
Larissa Kennedy, Warwick Students' Union, NUS Black Students Campaign, and first-time delegate. Conference, when I arrived here yesterday, I was looking forward to setting the future of our national union, passing crucial motions, and to be honest, mainly getting people out of my Facebook messages. But instead, I was met by the national president talking about the Warwick group chat for a line in a speech. Conference, sexual harassment is not a line in a speech. Racism is not a line in a speech. My identity is not a line in a speech. I'm repping ends is not a line in a speech. I am tired of people standing up here with words and no action. I was the girl guide who represented 500,000 girls and young women at 15 years old and set a national strategy to tackle sexual harassment in schools. I was the 16-year-old, not old enough to vote, so I fought for national policy on Vote 16 for the British Youth Council. I was the FemSoc president who kicked TERFs to the curb and brought trans students and women of colour from the margins to the centre. I was the first black woman elected at my students' union and the officer who created a legacy for the 2 black women that followed me, because conference, this isn't about me. This is about you, this is about us, this is about our movement. For an NUS that keeps you at the heart of what that movement does, vote Larissa #1 for Block of 15.
Thank you, candidate. Just going to squeeze in a quick shout out to Cumbria SU, who've asked for one, and mainly to let you know that Cumbria used to be part of Wales. Maybe it should be again. Discuss later. Our next candidate is Mona Monia. Mona? You've got 30 seconds.
Mona Munir, Goldsmiths Students Union. Just wanted to start by giving a shout out to Goldsmiths Anti-Racism Action Group, because conference, I was this close to not coming here today because me and my students have gone into occupation to combat the racism and the lack of action from our institution. For so long, our educational institutions kept the attainment gap a dirty little secret, continuously failing to take responsibility. But conference, there's a conversation we've been avoiding. It ends up being whisper conversations and late-night messages. It is, of course, the racism we face in our students' unions. Again and again, our national union has failed to support students from marginalized backgrounds. Women officers being spoken at, not spoken to, in meetings have been let down by the NUS. Black students who are left to organize Black History Month and tackle racism alone have been let down by the NUS. Trans students staying off campus as TERFs treat their addressers have been let down by the NUS. We need a union that will stand up for you as a student. Students have lost trust in their own unions, and we can't let them lose trust in their national union. This is our union, this is our space, this is our time. We need an NUS that is free, that is there for every student. Conference, we don't just need reformation, we need transformation. For an NEC that will not hesitate to speak up and show up, vote Mona Munir #1 for Block of 15. Thank you.
Dead on 90, well practiced. So thank you, that candidate was Mona Munir. Our next candidate is Nabila Mulana. I think you probably know by now, candidate, but you've got 90 seconds. I know.
Sorry, am I right to just move the mic? Nabila Maulana, Sheffield Hallam. Conference, yesterday we voted to abolish the NEC because apparently members didn't show up. Let me tell you this. As your NEC welfare second place, I showed up. Because when students on my campus are afraid to access mental health services because of Prevent, when Black students are locking themselves in their rooms because of racism on campus, when international students are struggling with their health and don't know who to turn to, when a student has to choose between buying food and paying rent, conference, I had to show up. Because we need to take NUS out of conference and onto our campuses. When our students are at rallies and protests, we will join them. We, as a movement, will fight together. We will ensure that the discussions and demands from the protest lines are taken into boardrooms and translated into policies and actions, because we are more than one faction, one students' union, or one city. We are 7 million students uniting. And that is the NUS. And that is the NUS you'll get if you vote for me. Nabila Maulana, #1 for Block of 15. Thank you.
Thank you. That candidate was Nabila Maulana. Also hello to the University of the Highlands and Islands. I don't know any facts about that. Soz. Our next candidate is Neil Richardson. Neil, come up and join us. Well, you know, there, not up here.
Neil Richardson, UUSU. Conference, NUS stands at a crossroads, and we need to pick a direction. We need strong voices to serve in the NEC that will put our students first. NUS for far too long has become distant from students, and the number of distant students is growing year on year. I want to see an NUS that fights for improved mental health facilities on campus, improved housing rights for students, campaigns that put student health and well-being at the centre, and campaigns that bring the most marginalised groups in our movement back into our movement. In this time of change, we need a voice for the nations, a voice that will fight for Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and anywhere in England that is outside of the M25 loop. NEC, alongside full-time officers, need to take steps to address that as soon as possible, and I am willing to start that conversation in NEC. Internally, we need to have honest conversations about accountability and accessibility of the full-time officer team. These are conversations that I will advocate for. Use this election to vote for a strong NEC. Vote Neil Richardson, #1. Thank you.
Thank you, Conference. Just a message to candidates in the student directorial elections. Because of time constraints, you will now have 60 seconds. This isn't the case for block. Our next block candidate is Sajjad Hussain.
আজকের সম্মেলনের সম্মানিত সদস্যবৃন্দ, oh wait, it's hard to understand me, isn't it? Imagine English is your second language and you are trying to navigate conference. You are trying to find your voice in your national union. Well, this is what I and many other international students feel. Conference, my name is Sajjad Hussain, re-elected Vice President at London South Bank Students' Union, standing here today to be one of your block of 15. I'm standing here today to add the voice of international students that persecuted by the hostile environment led by the right-wing conservative government and almost let down by its national union. I'm standing here to hold all the officers that we elected to make sure they keep their promises, to campaign for the post-study work visa and policies against sexual predators on our campuses, policies against marketization of our education, combating prevent on our campuses, and campaign for the mental health support. It has become the center point of our conversations. Every single sub-vertical officers and activists need mental health support. If you have the same passion as me, if you want NUS to do what it should be doing, if you believe we should go ahead, if you...
Time, delegate, please. Time.
Both Sajjad Hussain.
Okay. Our next candidate is Sally Patterson. Sally.
Sally Patterson, NEC. Conference, it's easy to stand up here and tell you what I believe. That education is a right, not a privilege. That a Star of David or a hijab should be worn with pride, not fear. That a Tinder date should be an adventure, not a potential death sentence. But words without actions are the foundations of a hollow movement. Real leaders turn theory into practice. This year alone, I've overturned sexual violence procedures at my university so we can actually support survivors. I've empowered Islamophobia Awareness Month, actioned anti-Semitism training, and brought Jewish and Muslim women together for a groundbreaking interfaith conference. I've generated graduation bursaries, commissioned halal and kosher food on campuses, and padded out prayer spaces. Conference, I'm only just getting started. Every single one of you inspires me to keep fighting. When it comes to mental health, it's our SABs and our FTOs who are struggling the most, but receiving the least. but it's also freshers, college students, student parents, and apprentices. Our student leaders are at breaking point, and NUS must be the glue that holds them together. From Nightline to Araf Committee to the Equalities Officer at Bristol Students' Union, I've not just dreamt, I've delivered. So please put your faith in me for one more year and let's rally with Sally again.
Time. Oh. Right, thank you. That candidate was Sally Patterson. And our last but not least candidate is Sean Keeley.
Hello, everyone. Sean Keeley, Oxford Brookes Students' Union. It's quite daunting up here. It is for me anyway, but I think we've done really well at this conference. I'm going to be the last speaker for this election. But I think since we've made some really great reform, I think it's all about what we want in the future of the NUS and the NEC. It's time to ensure that the reforms are implemented properly, safely, and accountably. I've been struggling to write content for this speech because I believe in 3 simple concepts, and that's accountability, accountability, and accountability. That's a cliche there. People always work better when there's accountability. They always work fairly. They always bring people together, and I think that people have more pride in their work when they're held to account. I think it sounds like a magic cure for some NUS skeptics, people being held to account all the time. But actually, it's all about making a strong NUS for everyone. Now, we have a new executive team, and it's time to empower them from whatever side you're from, because as long as they're kept to account and they're accountable, they're actually for everyone. Sorry my speech has been a bit boring, and I've said accountable so many times, but we're all here today to ensure that there's a strong NUS tomorrow. So vote Sean Keeley for number 1 block. Thank you.
Thank you. That final candidate was Sean Keeley, the open nominations. Also a candidate in this election, still a conceptual thing. Now we're going to move on to the remaining elections. So can I ask candidates for Student Director and DPC to come up the front, please? And for block candidates too, you're already here, that's nice. So we're about to start. So before we leave, hi to De Montfort SU, happy birthday to Jamie from USA, happy birthday to Leisha from Bath. I've got a very bad cheese joke that I now can't remember from someone at Lincoln, but I'll retweet it if you really want to see that. South London's the best London, Wales is better than everywhere else, cats over dogs, and I also really like sparkling water. I know a lot of people don't like that. So, yeah, just ruined my reputation there. I told you not to follow me on Twitter, lads. So, directors, you'll be the next election. Thank you, love you, bye. Clap us off then.
Hello, conference. How are we doing today? That good, great. We're all there right now, it's fine. Bear with us 1 second. By all means, share yourselves cheese jokes, but don't bother tweeting them to me because I'm not going to read them out. So just to keep all of our candidates a little bit confused, we are actually going to allow for a 90-second speech in this election just because we changed it at the last minute. So it's not really fair on you. You're welcome. By all means, carry on heckling me from down there. It's really helpful when I'm on the stage. Okay, so in this election, we are electing student director. It's been a very long conference, delegates. So if we could just have the name of the candidates up on the screen. So I think we're ready to get started. So if I could have silence on conference floor. Believe it or not, if loads of people whisper, it's exactly the same as if 3 people are talking. So if we could just have silence on conference floor, and if we could show respect to people that are about to stand on a national stage and try and get elected. So our first candidate is Azza Abdullah. So if we could have Azza on stage. Azza is not standing in this election. Could we have Aaron Thompson on stage, please?
Aaron Thompson, Kent Union. Conference, hopefully you'll agree with me that we need directors that we can trust. Directors who will prioritize the needs of the movement, directors who will ensure that turnaround is a success, and that is why I'm running to be your next student director. I am the president and chair of Kent Students' Union, an £11 million organisation. I am a first-class degree holder in accounting and finance, and I am a member of the NUS Black Students Committee. Conference, I am a candidate with the experience, the degree, and the values for this role. Recently, we learned that our friends at Canterbury Christ Church SU had to throw out the results of the NUS referendum because NUS itself interfered. And what did they say? Well, sorry, you had to run the vote again. We didn't think we did anything wrong. Conference, this is not good enough. It is this attitude that we see SUs lose faith, disaffiliate, and lose NUS more money. Something needs to change, Conference. Now, I know you all like a good meme, but Conference, NUS is becoming a bad one. It can't hold hands with liberation and look back and look at the wonders of financial surpluses. It can't ask itself how it will save NUS and look at the first butterfly that comes along and with the answer of defunding liberation as if it's so simple. People are losing their lives, losing their rights, and there needs to be more transparency, Conference. This year, I've been working with black teenagers in schools to create the activists of tomorrow. I am inspired by the sacrifice of those in the goldsmiths occupation. And Conference, I know what liberation and activism means to all those elected, so elect me and I'll be your voice in
Time,
this
candidate, time.
Thank you.
Thank you, candidate. Our next candidate is Chris Morris, but he was unable to make it to conference. He will stay in this election, though. So our next speaker is Charlie Walker. Charlie, come up to the stage. You'll have 90 seconds.
Charlie Walker, Durham Students' Union, NEC, first-time delegate, first-time speaker, and long-time governance hack. Conference, I'll be honest with you. If you haven't worked it out already, I'm a skinny, gay, quiet nerd. I wasn't comfortable or confident in every space in my university, but my students' union gave me the confidence and the political education I needed to stand before you today. That is the power of the student movement. That is why I want a strong, political national union. Want a candidate that has experience? Students at Durham elected me to their board not once, not twice, but 3 times. Conference, what a week. We have passed reform with amendments to protect autonomous liberation campaigns, preserve sections, keep gender-balanced delegations, and finally recognise apprentices. So elect someone who will take that vision to the board, someone who has the experience and the skills and the drive to see NUS reach its 100th birthday, not just surviving this crisis, but being the liberated, radical, campaigning union we just voted for. Vote Charlie Walker #1 for student director.
Thank you, candidate. Our next candidate is Jack Morwood. Jack, come up to the stage. You'll have 90 seconds. Can we have silence on conference floor, please? Thank you.
Jack Morwood, Exeter Students Guild. So good you get to do it twice. Well, conference, I remember a wise man saying, if you are going through hell, keep going. And I think that those words are really relevant to NUS. These are probably my last words at NUS, but this is an extraordinary time in our national union's history. Austerity measures at this union are necessary. They really are absolutely necessary. And cuts are the only option, the best option we've got, and absolutely the right thing to do. But being honest about them is optional. I'll be open and transparent as your student director because that's what our members deserve. So conference, don't be afraid of financial responsibility because when you're hostile to cuts, you're hostile to an NUS that has a future. As your student director, I'll be a steward. That's what this role's all about. I'll offer common sense, delivering strength and stability in NUS's finances, balanced with the need for good services and low affiliation fees. Conference is not a dream. NUS can change, and NUS must change, so don't blow it. Let's seize the prize of reformed NUS. Vote Jack Morwood, #1, to be your student director. Hope you had some exercise. Thank you very much, conference.
Thank you, candidate. Our next candidate is Laura Dowds. Laura, come up to stage. You'll have 90 seconds. Conference, no whooping onto the floor. Thank you.
Laura Dowds, Anglia Ruskin. Conference, we may have passed reform motions, but the NUS is still absolutely in a crisis. Our votes for the reform amendments in this room mean nothing without experienced students on the board, making sure that the amendments are implemented in the spirit with which they were submitted. Our NUS is in crisis, and you deserve an experienced student director to speak up for you and make sure we have an NUS you can be proud of next year. As president of Anglia Ruskin, I've sat on my Finance and Risk Committee for 2 years, and I've chaired my main trustee board. Conference, I might need glasses to see, but even I'd be able to see a £4 million deficit. I know my way around accounts, and I've had to deal with more than a little financial drama at my union this year, and guess what? We're still here. You have my word that I will always do the right thing for us, for all of us. I've been through FE, and if Belfast Met are still here, hiya. And I've been through higher education at a post-92. And conference, I'm from Northern Ireland, so you know I'm going to stand up for the nations in a genuine way to make sure your views are represented. Conference, I'm a governance nerd. I love this stuff. I love having oversight. I love figuring out the finances. And most importantly, conference, I love the student movement. I want you to have a conference to come to next year, and I want NUS to keep delivering for students like I know it can. And that's why I'm asking you to vote Dowds for director. Cheers.
Thank you, candidate. Our next candidate is Ross Lovett. Come to the stage, Ross. You'll have 90 seconds. Start when you're ready.
Ross Lovett, University College, Birmingham. Conference, we've got a really big job ahead of us. Yesterday, after months of conversation, we've passed a whole load of amendments and rule changes, and finally, the reform motion. Reform was what was needed, and it's caused a lot of fear across the movement. So I'm going to promise to you, as student director, that I will do everything in my power to make sure every single one of these amendments makes its way into our democracy. Because we have rebuilt our NUS, and we need to rebuild that trust in NUS. I'll make sure that the National Scrutiny Council is implemented. I'll make sure that the power to shape our national union lies with National Conference where it belongs. And Conference, I'll make sure that the trans officer is implemented and that liberation remains at the heart of everything NUS does. If you elect me as student director, I'll throw everything into turning NUS around. I'll provide the scrutiny it needs and make sure that student leadership is protected. And it's not just wishful thinking. Over the past year, I've turned my small and specialist union around, a union that does FE, HE, and more. I've done this alongside doing my master's in business management. From being the only full-time officer with no full-time staff to now registered charity on the way up with a second full-time officer in place. Because Conference, you can trust me to get the job done. For a safe pair of hands, for a record of delivering what's done, don't just like NUS.
Time, candidate, time. Thank you, candidate. Our next candidate is Tom Snape. Tom, come up to stage. You have 90 seconds. Start when you're ready.
Tom Snape, Keele Students' Union. Conference, we were told to expect division in drama, but instead we have shown just how much we agree on. Now let's talk about what comes next. We need student directors that are ready to hit the ground running from day one to drive forward the radical and transformative vision we have just put together. I'm a member of the Union Development Zone Committee. I chair one of the NUS's Direction and Oversight Boards, and I'm the chair of trustees at my SU. I'm great fun at parties. I know what it means to scrutinise the numbers, to make sense of strategy, and to hold boards to account when they get things wrong. And let's be real, too much has gone wrong. Too much has gone wrong. We need an NUS that is empowering activists and speaking to and for every student. A radical, campaigning, liberated union for the 21st century. That is the NUS we need. This week we have secured our future, but the NUS is still in a fragile period of change. Getting this right will take experience. On my board, I've overseen the recruitment of a new CEO, financial memorandums, wholesale governance reform, and a brand new strategy. So, for the candidate we need, with the experience to get the job done, to make our collective vision a reality, select Snape #1 for Student Director.
Thank you, candidate. Those are all of our candidates for Student Directors. There is also reopened nominations. So as we switch over, if we could stay in relative silence, and we'll get ready for the DPC elections. Can we just check DPC are at the front of the room? Delightful, lovely to see you.
So conference, we're down to the final election for this year, which is Democratic Procedures Committee. Each candidate will have up to 1 minute to speak. Just a reminder, please, no whooping, not just for people who are in the room, but also for those who are watching on the live stream. And also a reminder, reopen nominations as a candidate, but you won't hear from them. So as with all the other elections, we will go in alphabetical order. So is it possible to have the name of the candidates on the screen, please? Thank you. So the first candidate you'll hear from is Azza Abdullah. Azza, you have up to 1 minute.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Azza Abdullah, and conference, I'm starving. You might be thinking, what is she on about? But that's all that's been on my mind when I've been stuck in this room for 2 days with minimal breaks. I feel your pain, and that's why I commit to making conference more accessible and inclusive, specifically for first-time delegates. I remember when I came to my first conference 3 years ago, I had T-shirts thrown in my face, stickers to the back of me without me even realizing, and all I could think is, what on earth is going on? In my time in the movement, I've been committed to creating inclusive spaces, making friends, not factions. At my SU, I've been committed to widening democracy and participation for marginalized groups. And as an officer and volunteer, from HE Zone to BSCs, from ethics boards to NEC, trust in me and vote Azza for DPC. Love you guys.
Thank you, candidate. That candidate was Azza Abdullah. The next candidate is Hannah Pridich. Hannah, you have up to 1 minute.
Hannah Pridich, Lancaster University Students' Union, and a proud Welshie. Odds are most of us have sat here wondering, what on earth is this procedural motion? I want to ensure that what's going on is actually clearly explained to delegates so we know what we're voting for. I want a conference that's run fairly with speakers from all backgrounds, making sure the nations, regions and FE students are actually heard at conference, especially at such a crucial time. These conference days are too long. Quite frankly, I don't blame any of the delegates for leaving early on Tuesday during the accounts. The long days aren't accessible, and it shouldn't take me tweeting the chair to get accessibility needs met. So support me, whether you're a first-time or fifth-time delegate, for a conference that works for all to ensure democracy doesn't become a dudmocracy. Thank you.
Thank you. That candidate was Hannah Pridich. The next candidate is Joshua Muirhead. Joshua, you have up to 1 minute.
Joshua Muirhead, University of Stirling, not Sterling, Student Union. So conference, firstly, to end an argument from earlier, Glasgow's the best city in the universe, never mind the world. Home of Red Clydeside, Billy Connolly and the deep fried Mars bar. Now, I'm the current housing officer and VP Communities elect for Stirling University and have been involved in student activism since I started uni. So I have plenty of experience dealing with numerous forms of democracy and helping things go along. I offer a fresh set of eyes for our democracy. I pride myself on my ability to be neutral and put my beliefs to the side to represent the wider student movement. I'm not in a faction, I'm not a big name at this conference, and all I can offer you is someone who will fight to keep our democratic processes going and them democratic. Vote me for no joshing about with democracy. Vote Josh, DPC. Thank you.
Thank you. That candidate was Joshua Muirhead. The next candidate is Molly Jean Longden. Molly, you have up to 1 minute.
Prynawn da pawb. I'm Molly Jean Longden, Wellbeing Officer at Aberystwyth Students' Union. Conference, whether you are for or against the reform, you cannot deny that there is now a significant need for strong democratic procedures and a committee that will aid you in seeing the future you want for NUS. I started my time in the movement as a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed first-year SAB with absolutely no clue how to be a delegate, but now, 2 NUS Wales conferences down, multiple committees sat on, and more conferences within NUS UK than I can count, I stand before you with an understanding and a passion for the democracy of our NUS. I want to streamline your conference, make it accessible for all. 11-hour days just aren't doable. We need to train our delegates so that they understand the democratic processes before they even get in the room, how we include all, including our FE in our debates, how we look at access breaks, how we create a space for healthy and informed debate. And I came into NUS at a time where I thought it was okay, but it's not. And I cannot and I do not want to leave NUS when I have the ability and the passion to change that. Please vote Molly, number 1 for DPC.
Thank you. That candidate was Molly Jean Longden. The next candidate is Natalie Grigorenko. Natalie, you have up to 1 minute.
Hello, conference. You may not know who I am, and honestly, I don't blame you. I've not been engaged within the national movement for a long time, but I've always represented students. I've always represented democracy. My name, for you who don't know, is Natalie Grigorenko, and I'm running for DPC, not as a last resort, not to represent a faction. I'm standing to promote democracy. I have 3 years of SU democracy experience in the UK, but I also have 3 further years of experience of SU democracy in Sweden. I've seen some highly functioning student movements, and I've seen some, quite frankly, highly flawed ones. If you vote for me, I will be the truly neutral candidate, and I will be the candidate that has experience that stretches further than just our national borders. Vote Natalie for DPC. Thank you.
Thank you. That candidate was Natalie Grigorenko. The next candidate is Phil Dowler. Phil, you have up to 1 minute.
Phil Dowler, NEC. Conference this year has been incredibly inaccessible. From long 11-hour days, exhausting folk to the point that they're literally falling asleep in their seats as motions are passed. I've heard delegates across this hall repeatedly say they're lost, confused, frustrated. They don't know whether we're coming or going, and delegates have lost track of what they're voting on and how is that democratic. With 70% of conference being first-time delegates, as we've often heard over the last few days, this is just not good enough. Elect me to DPC, and I will ensure first-time delegates have received a briefing prior to arriving at conference. Whether you're a first-time delegate, an observer, or a seasoned hack, this is your conference. Vote me for DPC.
Thank you. That candidate was Phil Dowler. The next candidate is Sabrina Miller. Sabrina, you have up to 1 minute.
Sabrina Miller, Bristol SU.
Thank you all so much for listening to me. My name's Sabrina Miller, first year at Bristol Uni. I wish to represent you all on the DPC so we can trust and respect our democracy. NUS is too exclusive and it's frankly absurd. I want to conjure up some change. You have a right to be heard. We need to learn to include. We need a new attitude. We want equality and justice, so let's spread the word. At the moment, NUS is a mystery. It's so confusing because it's shrouded in secrecy. It isn't hard to see. We need transparency. You have a right to demand accountability. Too many first-time delegates can't partake. It's just political hacks who can participate. I'm going to fight for change because it's a real outrage. Make democracy clear so we can all engage. And I promise right now, if you elect me, I'll use my powers to improve our democracy. Every charm I have, every spell I know, to ensure NUS will continue to grow. Thanks again, and I hope...
Candidate, time.
Oh. No.
Conference, please, no whooping. That's time, candidate. That candidate is Sabrina Miller. The next candidate is Zainab Khan. Zainab, you have up to no whooping. Zainab, you have up to 1 minute.
Zainab Khan, King's College, London. Conference, we have been repeatedly told over the past 2 days that the successes and wins of the NUS are due to the work of liberation campaigns and the superhuman efforts of student activists, that it is the hard-earned fruits of this labor that make the NUS worth engaging with, that make the bad jokes, the cramped seats, and the mounting frustration at recounts and procedural motions worth it. But conference, the values and ideals of liberation cannot be effective if our democratic processes are defective and fail the very students that form the beating heart of this organization. Delegates should not have to fear being heckled, race across the conference floor to submit procedural motions, or hear marginalizing rhetoric in a space that is supposed to be safe. Democracy is the lifeblood of the NUS, and when one group is silenced, our democracy as a whole is disfigured. So conference, if you want a streamlined system for submitting procedural motions, if you want adequate resources and in-depth pre-conference training for
Time,
first-time delegates,
candidate,
vote Zainab
time,
for DPC.
candidate, time. That candidate was Zainab Khan. The next candidate is Hattie Tolleson. Hattie, you have up to 1 minute.
Hattie Tolleson, London South Bank Students' Union. That conference is exactly what procedural motions sound like to a first-time delegate. Let's be honest, our governance system is complex, bureaucratic, and opaque. And if we're brutally honest, the hacks constantly use it to disempower, derail, and frustrate the will of conference. I want to change that, to take the power from the few and give it back to the many. A vote for me is a fair chance for all. I'm an ordinary delegate. I'm a factionless underdog from a very small students' union. But I'm a sports leader and a student who should really be finishing her dissertation, but who instead is trying to create an accessible, understandable, and usable conference for absolutely any delegate. Vote Hattie, number 1
Time,
for DPC.
candidate, time. That candidate was Hattie Tolleson, and also there is reopen nominations. Conference, that brings us to the end of all the volunteer elections. Just a reminder, voting is online, but you will still need to express your preferences numerically. Over the next 24 hours, you will receive your email, so don't freak out if in the next 5 minutes it hasn't arrived. It will arrive over the next 24 hours. If you encounter a problem, do email democracy@nus.org.uk. That's it. We've finished for elections. Thank you. And I'll hand back to DPC.
Hello, conference. I'm back in the chair, which I wasn't expecting. We are very nearly there, conference. Unfortunately, election time has eaten up into our any other business, so that has stopped. So we're going to go to closing remarks, and I'd like to welcome your National President, Shakira Martin, to the stage.
Are my children here? I need my kids, please. The moment you've been waiting for. National Conference. We've been together for 3 days now, where we've discussed policy, took part in elections, and done nothing less than vote for the future of NUS. This week, NUS came close to collapse, but conference, we stopped that from happening. I think you should give yourself a round of applause, even you lot. At the start of the conference, I described NUS as a family. We argue, we irritate each other, and sometimes we feud. But as I said on Tuesday, when the existence of our family is threatened, we fight together to protect it. You have shown you are filled with ideas, delivered amazing speeches, and shared your optimism about what the future of NUS could look like. And as I leave the movement, I could rest confidently knowing that this movement will continue long after I leave. This will be my last formal address to you as your national president, and I make a request for you to give me the opportunity to share my experiences over the last 4 years. 2 general elections, 1 referendum, and 11 elections won. It's fair to say it's been a whirlwind. Being a black working class woman from further education, it has come with its challenges. Although twice elected with a majority, I've had to prove every single day why I deserve to be in this role. Every day I was reminded that getting in isn't the same as getting on, as I know a lot of you will be able to relate to. When the structures and rules you are working in weren't built for people like myself. When you are celebrated for your non-traditional voice, but your judgment is not taken seriously on the real stuff. When you're characterized by racist, sexist, classist stereotypes. I'd ask you to think about the things you might have heard about me. Maybe you believe some of those things, but ask yourself, is it at all possible that some of these stories and your beliefs about me are based on racism, sexism, and classism? This speech was difficult for me to write and to give because I wanted to be 100% honest and let you know the difficulties I have faced in this role as a black working class woman. And the truth is, conference, if I was to be asked today if this movement is for someone like me, I would honestly say no. And all this was especially difficult because I wasn't just fighting for my right to exist, I was fighting for the right for NUS to exist too. And conference, we made sure we will continue to exist. We've passed reform, but now we need to take some time to reflect on our individual and collective behaviours that have contributed to the toxic culture, leaving people isolated. And I promise, I genuinely promise, that I will do the same. We've come a long way, and I know that we can take this organisation even further. but I am devastated that I felt isolated from spaces I've self-identified in. The Women's Campaign, the Black Students Campaign. Okay, let me just, you're showing yourself up. Showing yourself up. I'm not going to let you take away my legacy, Lord Jesus. As a Christian, I'm not perfect, and I try every day to be better than the last. And I have my own failings. But as my faith teaches me, I need to ask for forgiveness for every day. So let us forgive each other. For real, there's a lot of water under the bridge between some of us. But I want you to know, I forgive you. I forgive the people who have harmed me and pushed me to the limits that I didn't even know that I had. Please, 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 I ask you to extend the same courtesy to me. As I said yesterday, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, and when I go home, I have some of the same worries and hopes that everybody else has in this room. As many of you know, being different and being the first of anything has its challenges. But I'm proud that yesterday we made history by reforming our National Union of Students. Reforming NUS after years and years of decline hasn't been easy. And it has taken all of us. And a lot of people have played a huge role in making this happen. And there's a lot of things that I've done that most people will never know happened. The behind-the-scenes stuff, the really difficult stuff that you only find out when you're national president. And I can assure you, it's not all speeches, events, and snazzy documents. When an organisation is sick, you have to put yourself at risk of that sickness to save it. I am proud I took that risk. I am proud of the decisions I have made. But throughout it all, I am proud that I have never lost sight of saving NUS, no matter how difficult the path may have seemed. But I also want to take this opportunity to thank NUS. The organisation can be unforgiving, and it will take a lot of time and patience to find my feet post this role, and for NUS to find its feet post-reform. But get it right, and we will be an organisation that fights for the rights of all students on the issues that we all care about. So good luck, NUS. I love you lots. I know you will be brilliant, and I'm wishing you every success from the sidelines. Now, I'm going to do a proper speech later in a minute, where there'll be some tears and hopefully some laughs too. But I just wanted to leave you with a few thoughts from me. Yes, elections are important. Yes, policy matters. And yes, our officers should be held to account. I ain't going job centre. But this should not come at the cost of losing sight of why we are really here. The way we treat people is political, and we should never, ever forget that. Coming to the end of something gives you perspective. There will be things I regret and things I should have took time out to enjoy, like those that have actually supported me from day one. But I can leave my last national conference knowing, sleeping well at night, and continuing my life knowing I honestly, truly, genuinely did my best. Because conference, people like me don't get positions like this. But it has been an absolute honour of my life to have been your national president. And I will continue to fight and represent you to the very last day of my term in June. So before you leave today, there are some things which I would like you to think about as you return to your Students' Union. NUS' ultimate mission is to ensure that every student can get in and get on in education. This means we have to dismantle the barriers for our students, whatever they may be, whether it's FE, HE, or for apprentices. We must go back and we must double our efforts to make sure that every student, no matter what their background, their class, their politics, can succeed in education. The Black Attainment Gap, led by the Black Students Campaign, is some of the most valuable work, groundbreaking work, and important work in our movement. We are the leading voice on this. Please, lend your voice, amplify it, so that we can close this disgusting attainment gap on our campuses. And finally, please, 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 don't forget about my FE students. You are my FE family, and I will love you and always be there with you forever. You do some of the most amazing and unbelievable work with minimum money and resources. And HE, don't forget you have FE students within your institutions, and you have a responsibility for FE students who want to study with you. Conference, you might not love me, but I love you. Thank you very much for a great conference. We saved NUS! Sorry, access, sorry. Now, thank you for staying and not for walking out. Have a safe journey, and I'll see you on the other side.
Conference, it gives me a little bit of sadness but great pleasure to say conference has now closed. We have finished. Well done, everybody. A brilliant 3 days. There are going to be unofficial leaving speeches for us FTOs who are leaving your movement. So if you would like to stay or have later trains, flights or anything, please do stay. We'd love to see as many of you as possible. And I will also say see you on the other side. Have a safe trip home, conference.